What if I told you that the price of Bitcoin is not moved by chance? What if there's a hidden hand always pushing the price up or down? Well, if you thought I was crazy, you're not alone. But stick around because today we'll expose the truth behind the scenes. We'll reveal the silent forces shaping Bitcoin's destiny and show you how they impact your trades. From the depths of the ocean to the vastness of space, whales are among the largest creatures on Earth. In the world of Bitcoin, there's another kind of whale and they're even bigger. Meet the Bitcoin whale, a mysterious entity holding thousands of Bitcoin in their digital wallet. Their every move can cause massive shifts in the market, influencing prices with just a single transaction. While these crypto whales remain anonymous, their colossal presence looms over the market, making them the biggest players in the game. There are two types of whales in the crypto market. The first are the early investors who bought Bitcoin when it was just a few dollars or less. Now with millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, they can make or break markets with every trade. The second type of whale is the institution, a large organization with significant financial resources. They include hedge funds, investment banks, and even governments. And while no one knows the exact number, analysts believe there are around 1,000 whales controlling approximately 60% of all the Bitcoin in circulation. That means that the actions of just a handful of people can affect the price of Bitcoin for everyone else. Now the question is, what are these entities doing? Are they buying and holding long-term or are they playing the short game? Do they want to push Bitcoin to new heights or watch it crash and burn? Well, the answer is not so simple. It depends on the individual whale and their unique goals. Some may seek short-term profits through active trading while others focus on long-term gains from hodling Bitcoin. There's even speculation that some whales collude to manipulate the market and make huge profits. However, whether these rumors are true or not, the fact remains that the actions of these powerful players have a ripple effect on the entire market. So it's essential to understand their strategies and motivations to navigate the market successfully. If you're thinking this sounds complicated, don't worry. Let's dive into the details. Institutional invasion. In recent years, the institutional revolution has brought major changes to the Bitcoin market. Large financial institutions like BlackRock, Fidelity, and other investment giants have been quietly amassing huge amounts of Bitcoin. The total held by institutional investors is estimated to be in the hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, equivalent to roughly $10 billion. Fidelity Investments is a pioneer in the space, having applied for a Bitcoin ETF in August 2021. Shortly after, in October, the company revealed that its clients collectively own over 1 million Bitcoin. BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, delved into the crypto market in early 2022 when its subsidiary, BlackRock, filed for a Bitcoin spot ETF. This monumental step signifies a growing acceptance of Bitcoin within traditional finance circles. Similarly, giant investment firm Vanguard has also jumped onto the bandwagon. In 2022, they submitted an application for a Bitcoin ETF, indicating the growing recognition of Bitcoin's potential. The entry of these heavyweights into the Bitcoin market is a positive sign for the future of cryptocurrency. These institutions have the resources and influence to bring legitimacy and stability to the market. However, it also raises concerns about their intentions and potential impact on prices. Some argue that their massive holdings could give them undue control over the market, while others believe that their involvement will lead to greater transparency and regulation. Only time will tell how these power players will shape the future of Bitcoin. Coordinated pumps. Have you ever heard the phrase "buy the rumor, sell the news"? Well, it seems that someone might be flipping that script in the world of Bitcoin. A recent study published in April 2023 by researchers at the University of Texas at Austin and the University of Michigan has revealed a fascinating trend. The study, titled Bitcoin Price Manipulation Through Social Network-Based Event Prediction, suggests that Bitcoin pumps are often orchestrated by manipulating social media sentiment and press releases. The findings were based on an analysis of over 10,000 articles published between 2017 and 2021. The team used natural language processing techniques to identify coordinated social media campaigns designed to boost Bitcoin's price. Their research uncovered a sophisticated manipulation strategy that involves creating hype and interest through strategic leaks of information. By analyzing the language used in articles, social media posts, and press releases, the researchers were able to detect coordinated efforts to influence market sentiment. The study found that positive news about Bitcoin often precedes price increases, while negative news tends to follow price drops. This suggests that market participants are actively seeking out favorable news to support their investment decisions, but it also raises concerns about the motives behind these coordinated campaigns. Are they intended to generate profits for insiders or to manipulate the market for personal gain? As Bitcoin continues to gain popularity, it is crucial to be aware of the potential for manipulation and to stay vigilant against those seeking to exploit the market for their own benefit. Market makers and bots. But the story doesn't end with the institutions. There's another player on the field, lurking in the shadows and pulling strings from behind the curtain. Enter the market maker, a financial institution that provides liquidity to the market. But don't be fooled by the seemingly helpful name. These companies prioritize one thing above all else: profit. To achieve this, they use advanced algorithms and high-frequency trading bots that execute trades in milliseconds, allowing them to capitalize on tiny price fluctuations. One of the most concerning practices employed by market makers is front-running. This involves executing trades ahead of client orders, allowing them to profit from any resulting price movements. Another tactic is spoofing, where market makers place fake orders to create the illusion of high demand or low supply, manipulating prices to their advantage. Moreover, some market makers engage in layering, which entails placing multiple orders at slightly different prices to create the impression of a large order book, further influencing market dynamics. And let's not forget about the infamous pump and dump schemes. Market makers have been known to collaborate with each other and with traders to artificially inflate the price of a security and then quickly sell their holdings for a hefty profit. All these tactics highlight the cunning strategies employed by market makers to generate profits at the expense of ordinary traders. It's a world of deception and manipulation where the rules are stacked against you. And unless you're in the know, you could easily fall prey to their schemes. What you should know. With all this hidden activity happening behind the scenes, it's easy to feel like a small fish in a big pond. But don't despair. We've got some tips that will help you navigate the choppy waters and make smart decisions. First off, it's crucial to look beyond the surface and delve into the data. Don't just rely on headlines or social media hype. Instead, follow the money. Check out the latest wallet balances and transaction volumes. This way you'll get a sense of what the big players are doing and make more informed investment choices. Secondly, keep an eye on the overall market sentiment. Is it overwhelmingly bullish or bearish? Or is there a shift in the narrative? Understanding the broader market sentiment can help you spot potential opportunities or risks. Thirdly, don't overlook the power of diversification. Spreading your investments across different assets can help mitigate risk and protect your portfolio. Lastly, remember to stay updated on all the latest developments in the crypto world. Keep up with the latest news and events as they can significantly impact market sentiment and prices. Before you jump in, though, it's important to know that Bitcoin is not just digital gold. It's a battlefield. And you need to know who the generals are. These powerful players, both visible and behind the scenes, are shaping the future of Bitcoin. Understanding their strategies and motivations can help you navigate the market successfully, so don't be a passive bystander. Be proactive and take charge of your financial future. Stay informed. Keep learning and adapt to the ever-changing landscape of the crypto world. With a little knowledge and preparation, you can position yourself for success and ride the wave to financial freedom. You think you know Ethereum? Maybe you bought some before it was cool. Maybe you're trying to find out what all the fuss is about. Whatever your story, here's how we got here. Welcome to Whiteboard Crypto, the know. one YouTube channel for crypto education. And here we explain topics of the cryptocurrency world using analogies, stories, and examples so that you can easily understand them. In this video, we are going to explain what Ethereum is and where it's going. Let's dig in. Alright, Chapter 1, the merge. Back in 2022, the Ethereum network merged from one system to another. Imagine you're driving your car down the highway and instead of crashing into a wall, you smoothly transition into a new lane. That's exactly what happened to Ethereum. First, let's look at how things were. When Ethereum launched back in 2015, it used a consensus mechanism called proof of work, which required miners to use computers to complete complicated math equations. To do this, they would consume electricity running their computers like a car engine. But unlike cars, their only purpose was to burn gas. This required tons of energy and produced tons of carbon waste. Then in 2022, after years of development, the Ethereum network merged to a new consensus mechanism called proof of stake. With proof of stake, miners are replaced by validators who use their computers to check transactions. They don't need to run complex algorithms, just make sure everything is on the up and up. To become a validator, they must first stake or lock up 32 ETH, kind of like putting down a security deposit. In return, validators earn transaction fees. This means that instead of burning gas, the network burns it. Now this sounds like great news for the planet, and it is, but it also means that those cheap transactions aren't free. They are paid for by ETH holders through a process called I-1559. We'll talk more about that later. But anyway, with the merge, Ethereum became cleaner, faster, and ready for global domination. Chapter 2, Smart Contracts and dApps. Ethereum isn't just a digital currency. It's a whole new way to build apps. But first, we need to define two terms. Smart contracts and dApps. A smart contract is a program, an algorithm that lives on the blockchain. Think of it like a vending machine. You put money into it and get something out. In a smart contract, the money is usually ETH and whatever you get could be anything. For example, a collectible NFT, a ticket to an event, or even shares of a company. Basically, smart contracts let you and I build apps without needing servers, programmers, or middlemen. Anyone can upload a smart contract to the network and anyone can use it. There are currently over 3 million smart contracts on the Ethereum network. Now remember how we said there are no middlemen. Well, this has both good and bad sides. On the one hand, it means no more banks or governments controlling our applications. On the other hand, it also means that if someone makes a bug in their code, nobody can fix it. It's like burning money to buy an NFT. If the project dies, your money is gone. Also, there are no rules. Anyone can launch a token on the network, and many have done so. At the time of recording, there are around 170,000 different tokens on Ethereum. Some are legit, some are scams. So it's important to research what you're buying. Okay, lesson number 1, never trust a smart contract that hasn't been audited by a reputable firm. Anyway, these apps built on smart contracts are called decentralized applications or dApps. There are all kinds of dApps like crypto games, social media platforms, marketplaces, and even virtual worlds. Some popular ones include Uniswap, a decentralized exchange where you can trade tokens, and CryptoPunks, a collection of 10,000 NFTs. Speaking of NFTs, they were first introduced on Ethereum. Today, however, most NFTs are actually ERC-721 tokens on Ethereum, meaning they're really just smart contracts. Okay, Chapter 3, Layer 2 Explosion. Since the merge, the Ethereum Foundation has been hard at work making the network faster and cheaper. But let's be honest, it's still not perfect. So how do we speed up Ethereum? Well, with Layer 2 solutions. You see, Ethereum has a maximum capacity of around 30 transactions per second. Not great when Visa processes 2,000. So in order to increase speed, developers have created Layer 2 networks. These are separate blockchains that work alongside Ethereum, handling transactions off the main chain. Once the transaction is confirmed, it gets posted back to Ethereum. Popular Layer 2 solutions include Optimism, Arbitrum, and Xync. These projects handle thousands of transactions per second and cost pennies compared to dollars. So with Layer 2, we're getting closer to mass adoption. Alright, Chapter 4, ETH as the new digital oil. Just like oil powers our cars, it powers the entire Ethereum network. Every transaction, every app, every game on Ethereum needs gas. And that gas is ETH. Gas fees are the price you pay to get your transaction processed quickly. You can think of it like a tip for the network. Higher fees, higher priority. Lower fees, lower priority. Most people don't know this, but the majority of ETH transactions are actually free. Yes, you heard that right. You can send up to 1 ETH for free. This is because users rarely pay with ETH directly. Instead, they use a token called WETH, which is a wrapped version of ETH. This allows users to interact with decentralized applications without needing to pay gas fees. Now WETH and ETH are exactly the same, but WETH is a little more complicated. So if you want to learn more, stay tuned for a future episode on wrapped tokens. Anyway, since the merge, ETH's supply has been deflationary, meaning more ETH is burned than created. According to data from Ultrasound Money, each month the network burns around 600,000 ETH. So ETH's limited supply combined with its growing network means it could go up in value over time. So now we know what Ethereum is and how it works. Now we're gonna share our thoughts on where it's heading and any obstacles in its path. We think Ethereum will continue to evolve and improve. Vitalik Buterin, one of the co-founders of Ethereum, has a vision for a fully decentralized future. He wants us to be able to vote, own property, drive cars, and even attend school on the blockchain. Sounds crazy, right? Well, it's possible. For example, there are already political systems being built on Ethereum. Take Aragon, for example. It's a decentralized autonomous organization or DAO that lets groups make decisions using smart contracts. Members stake their tokens to gain voting power. Then they vote on proposals submitted by other members. Once a proposal reaches a certain threshold, it's carried out. This way, decisions are made quickly and efficiently without the need for middlemen. Another example is the US dollar on the blockchain. Yep, you heard that right. The US dollar on the blockchain. Tether and USD Coin are stable coins pegged 1-to-1 with the US dollar. They rate great for everyday purchases and can be sent anywhere in the world in less than a second. We might not be far from a day when we can use our crypto wallets to pay for coffee, groceries, and even rent. And that brings us to the risks. The biggest risk to Ethereum is probably high fees. Since the merge, gas prices have dropped dramatically. But as Ethereum grows, they may rise again. There's also the risk of centralization. Many of the largest Ethereum validators are centralized exchanges and institutions. This could lead to a single point of failure or bad actors could try to attack the network. Then there's the competition. Projects like Solana, Cardano, and Algorand are all trying to unseat Ethereum as the king of smart contracts. The bottom line, Ethereum isn't perfect, but we believe it will continue to improve and evolve. Now Ethereum is a means to an end. In the beginning, you'll need ETH to pay for gas. But eventually you won't be using it. You'll be living on it. That's all I got for this video. Hope you enjoy. And a special shout out to our supporters. Thanks for watching. Hey there and welcome to our channel, where we bring you the most important news from around the world in less than 3 minutes. And today's news is very special because it marks the release of our latest documentary film. We at our channel believe that knowledge is power. And the more people that understand Bitcoin, the better. So what is this new movie called? The Bitcoin Standard. A documentary by our channel. Sounds great. Well, then let me give you a little sneak peek behind the scenes. Okay, So here's our production team hard at work in our studio. That's not how documentaries are made. But anyway, here is a look at some of the footage that was shot for the movie. Yes, we traveled all over the place to make this documentary. We went to meet some of the key figures in the Bitcoin space and find out why this cryptocurrency matters. Now, unfortunately, you can't watch the entire documentary on YouTube. In fact, we don't recommend watching it on any platform where it can be taken down with a single click of a button. Instead, we encourage you to head over to our website to check it out. So let me tell you a bit more about this film. First off, it's not your average documentary. There is no talking head, no narrator, and no boring lectures. Instead, this film uses cinematic tension, interviews, graphics, and some light humor to explain why Bitcoin is much more than just a digital currency. It is a revolution. It's a threat to institutional corruption. And now it's a war. Here's a look at the trailer we put together. Intro: cinematic tension. Bitcoin isn't just code. It's a revolution, one that threatens the world's most powerful institutions. And now, governments are fighting back. Scene 1: what Bitcoin represents. Decentralization. Borderless value. Bitcoin gives power to the people, not to banks. Not to states. Scene 2: the global crackdown begins. China bans mining. The US targets exchanges. Europe pushes for crypto surveillance. Scene 3: central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Governments want control back. CBDCs are digital currencies, but they're not like Bitcoin. They can be tracked, frozen, and programmed. Scene 4: the battle for privacy. Will Bitcoin stay private? Can you really own money if someone else can shut it down? Scene 5: hope or defeat. Despite the attacks, Bitcoin grows stronger. From El Salvador to retail investors, a network keeps expanding. UTRO: the final message. This isn't just about money. It's about freedom, transparency, and control. Bitcoin might win, but first it has to survive. Now, I'm sure you're wondering who is behind this project. Well, we have assembled an incredible crew. First, there is our director of content, Christian Heyman. He is a filmmaker and co-founder of a creative agency. You may recognize him from our documentary series where he served as the primary interviewer. Then there is our producer, Lucy Hilton, who is an experienced documentary filmmaker. She has worked on projects such as Bank of America's Road to the Zero documentary and the Emmy Award-winning series. She also produced our documentary series. Next, we have our director of photography, Sebastian Cerda. He's an award-winning cinematographer known for his work on feature films and TV shows. And lastly, there is our executive producer, Alex. He is the co-founder of a creative agency and Bitcoin educator. He is the voice of Bitcoin, a popular Bitcoin podcast. And if you've watched our channel before, then you've probably seen his face on camera as well. Well, that's a quick look behind the scenes of our latest project. Are you ready to join us on this journey into the unknown world of Bitcoin? We'll be taking you along with us as we uncover the truth about Bitcoin and its potential to change the world. Our goal is to educate and inspire you so that you can make your own informed decisions about Bitcoin. So where can you watch this documentary? Well, it's not available on any video platforms, which is why we encourage you to visit our website. You'll be able to watch the full documentary exclusively there. Trust us, you won't regret it. Now, you might be wondering why we decided to make this documentary. Well, it's simple. We believe that Bitcoin is more than just a digital currency. It's a revolution. It's a threat to institutional corruption. And now it's a war. As governments around the world crack down on Bitcoin, it's important that people understand what Bitcoin really is and why it matters. This film explores the history, technology, and culture of Bitcoin and its potential to change the world. You'll learn what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why it's important. And you'll hear from some of the leading experts and thinkers in the Bitcoin space. We want to thank everyone who has supported us on this journey, to our sponsors, our partners, and our viewers. You are all an important part of the Bitcoin community and we appreciate your support. We hope that you enjoy this documentary as much as we enjoyed making it. So what are you waiting for? Head over to our website now and start watching. Don't miss out on this exclusive opportunity to learn more about Bitcoin. We'd like to take this moment to thank you for your support. Without you, none of this would be possible. Here are some fun facts about our crew. Did you know that Christian loves to travel to exotic locations whenever he gets the chance? He's been to over 50 countries and has no plans of slowing down. Lucy is a huge animal rights activist and has volunteered at various animal shelters in her spare time. She also loves to read mystery novels. Sub is an avid rock climber and can often be found scaling the walls at his local gym. Alex is a huge fan of science fiction movies and could quote Star Wars at length. We'd also like to take this opportunity to invite you to join our mission. If you love learning about Bitcoin and want to help spread the word, then get in touch with us. We'd love to have you on board. That's all for now. Thank you for watching and remember, stay curious. The year is 2024. It's been 2 years since the merge. And Ethereum, well, it's not exactly what the visionaries imagined. There are no flying cars or digital currencies replacing fiat. Crypto winter has turned into spring and then summer. And now we're heading towards fall. Yet something feels off. In 2022, Ethereum merged from a consensus mechanism of proof of work to proof of stake. At least 95% of the network is now staked. This made Ethereum much more environmentally friendly, but also made it less decentralized. What's worse, it did nothing to fix the other major pain points, high gas fees and slow transaction speeds. At this point, Ethereum feels like an old person. A wise, experienced old person who's seen a thing or two, but an old person nonetheless. Can Ethereum still evolve and stay relevant, or will it become obsolete? This is the story of how Ethereum became slow, expensive and centralized, and whether it can make a comeback. You're watching this report. It's me, and let's get right into it. Before we can talk about why Ethereum is slow, we first have to understand what made it so special in the first place. What caused this explosion of innovation and creativity that had billions of dollars flowing into the ecosystem? The answer is quite simple. It's smart contracts. When Vitalik Buterin created Ethereum, he wanted to build a platform where developers could build applications that run exactly the way they were programmed without any downtime, without any fraud, and without any third parties. All transactions would be publicly verifiable and transparent. Developers could use these smart contracts to create all sorts of things: financial applications, marketplaces, games, social networks. The list goes on. To explain how this works, imagine you have a digital asset like a JPG image. Normally you would have to upload this image to a server somewhere and pay someone to host it. But on Ethereum, your JPEG lives in a smart contract. So if your image is at this URL, you can write code that verifies that the image is actually a JPEG and that it hasn't been tampered with. This code lives on the blockchain forever and runs exactly the way it was programmed. If anyone tries to change the image, the code will stop them. But here's the important part. When you post your image on Ethereum, you also decide how many Ethereum you want to lock up in the smart contract. Let's say you put 1 ETH in there. Now another user comes along and says, "Hey, I want to buy this peg." Your smart contract will take the 1 ETH you put in, give it to the other person, and then send you the image. This is a very simple example of a marketplace, but it shows the basic idea of how smart contracts work. They allow us to build applications without needing middlemen. And in 2015 and 2016, developers went crazy. There was no easy way to do this stuff before Ethereum. So naturally you'd think that everyone would be on board, right? Well, unfortunately, not exactly. In July of 2016, a hacker stole $50 million worth of Ethereum by exploiting a vulnerability in the code of the Ethereum Classic chain. Vitalik proposed a new version of the blockchain that would reverse the hack, but some people disagreed and said that reversing the hack would go against the immutable nature of the blockchain. That's when the Ethereum community split into two. Most people agreed with Vitalik and continued on the new Ethereum blockchain, while a smaller group stuck with the original blockchain, which later became known as Ethereum Classic. This isn't that important to the story, but it's an example of the kind of infighting that would plague Ethereum over the years. Anyway, smart contracts led to the rise of dApps, or decentralized applications. There were news feeds that couldn't be censored, voting platforms that were tamper-proof, games that gave players true ownership of their items. But soon this innovation started to slow down. More and more projects left Ethereum for other blockchains like Cardano and Solana because it was cheaper and faster. Why? Because Ethereum had one major flaw: scalability. You see, every time someone buys an NFT or swaps tokens or does anything that requires a smart contract, the transaction has to be validated by multiple computers around the world. This process takes time and it costs money. To speed up the process, you have to pay a higher fee. These fees are called gas fees, and they often deterred casual users from interacting with Ethereum. In addition to high fees, there's also slow transaction speeds. The average transaction can take anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds to confirm, which is much slower than Visa and MasterCard. It gets even worse during peak hours. When congestion rises, so do fees. Last summer, a simple transaction could cost tens of dollars. By comparison, Solana processed 50,000 transactions per second and cost fractions of a penny. No wonder so many projects decided to leave. In fact, Ethereum lost its top spot as the most popular blockchain for smart contracts in early 2022. It currently ranks fourth after Bitcoin, DMD Chain, and XRP. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Just because Ethereum is no longer the biggest blockchain doesn't mean it's in trouble. Since 2017, Ethereum has been working on several scaling solutions, including sharding and sidechains and rollups. Sharding involves splitting the blockchain into multiple smaller chains, each of which can operate independently. Sidechains are separate blockchains that are linked to the main Ethereum chain. Rollups bundle multiple transactions together and execute them off the main chain, making them faster and cheaper. Out of all these options, rollups have proven to be the most popular. There are many different types of rollups, but the two main ones are optimistic rollups and zero-knowledge rollups, also known as ZK rollups. Both of these approaches bundle transactions off the main chain, but they differ in how they verify the data. Optimistic rollups assume that users are honest and only require one signature to confirm a transaction. ZK rollups, on the other hand, use zero-knowledge proofs to verify transactions, which makes them more secure but also more complex. Now, you might be wondering why Ethereum needs this security when the blockchain already has a consensus mechanism. Well, the thing is, even though the merge made Ethereum more secure, it didn't make it more private. All transactions are still public, but ZK rollups can hide certain information about a transaction, such as the amount being transacted. This can improve user privacy and also reduce the risk of theft. So far, there are a few different ZK rollups in development, including Starkware's Cairo and Polygon ZK Sync. One of the most popular optimistic rollups is Optimism, which launched in May of 2021. Another one is Arbitrum, which is a combination of both optimistic and ZK rollups. I won't bore you with the technical details, but basically the idea is that Arbitrum keeps the data private without needing zero-knowledge proofs. This makes it faster and cheaper to process transactions. As you can see, Ethereum is being actively worked on, and there are exciting developments happening all the time. But there's a problem. None of these changes have happened yet. You see, Ethereum is a victim of its own success. It's so big and complicated that it takes a long time to implement changes. Plus, there's always disagreement over what direction the network should go in. Take sharding, for example. This is supposed to be a big part of Ethereum's future, but it's been delayed several times. Some people say it'll never happen at all. Vitalik wants sharding to increase transaction speeds and lower gas fees, but others argue that it'll make Ethereum even more centralized. That's one of the challenges of decentralization. Yes, it helps protect against censorship and single points of failure, but it can also make it hard to make changes quickly. Everyone has to agree and reach a consensus before anything can be implemented. Speaking of Vitalik, he's become somewhat of a divisive figure in the crypto community. On one hand, he's a brilliant programmer and visionary who helped kickstart the entire Web3 space. On the other hand, he's also a billionaire who makes controversial decisions with little to no input from the community. For example, last year, Vitalik noticed that the crypto industry was dominated by English speakers. So, he and his team built a tool that translates Ethereum code into dozens of different languages. This was done with good intentions, but it outraged some people who felt that Vitalik was trying to control the narrative around Ethereum. Others criticize him for spending too much time on non-essential issues like improving the programming language of smart contracts and not enough time on fixing core problems like scalability and cost. Even his ideas for the future of Ethereum have been met with resistance. As I mentioned earlier, Vitalik wants Ethereum to be a triple threat: scalable, secure, and decentralized. He believes that Ethereum can achieve all three, but many experts disagree. If Ethereum becomes more scalable, it'll likely become less decentralized. If it becomes more decentralized, it probably won't be able to scale. And if it becomes more secure, it'll almost certainly be less scalable and less decentralized. So how does Ethereum break this dilemma? Maybe it's impossible. Maybe Vitalik is wrong. Or maybe he's right and Ethereum is simply going about it the wrong way. Ethereum was once called the world computer. It was supposed to replace everything from banks to courts to governments. In reality, it's become something much smaller, a home for creative coders and financial speculators. Don't get me wrong, that's not a bad thing. Ethereum is still the undisputed king of smart contracts, and it's unlikely that any other blockchain will dethrone it anytime soon. The same, however, cannot be said about the world computer. It's possible that the dream of Web3 was nothing but a mirage, a distraction from the real problems facing humanity. If that's the case, then Ethereum is simply a footnote in the history books. But if Web3 does eventually become a reality, then Ethereum might find itself fading into irrelevance. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. And see you in the next one. Yo, what's up everybody, it's me. In today's video, we're gonna talk about something that's been long in the making. Something that people have been whispering about for years now. Some people think it's a conspiracy, but it's really not. In fact, it's a reality. And there is one thing that I do want to make clear at the beginning of this video before we get into it. No matter where you stand on cryptocurrencies, no matter what you think about all of this technology, I think it is important that we understand what is happening right now because this will affect all of us. So the question is, what's going on? Well, there's something called a central bank digital currency. Maybe you've heard about it, maybe you haven't. There's only 11 countries that have fully launched a CBDC, but dozens more are testing it out. And the United States is among them. So what exactly are these? Well, let me show you. Welcome to Whiteboard Crypto, the #1 YouTube channel for crypto education. And here we explain topics of the cryptocurrency world using analogies, stories, and examples so that you can easily understand them. In this video, we are going to explain what a CBDC is, why governments are pushing for them, and how they could impact you. First off, let's go through the basics of what a CBDC actually is. Essentially, it's when a government creates a digital version of their existing currency. So instead of having cash or coins or even digital money in the form of your bank account, it's basically a fourth option. And it would be something that looks like cash, but it would technically be digital and issued by the government itself. But don't worry, it's not that complicated. Let me give you an example. Imagine you live in a country that issues paper money. Obviously, this wouldn't apply to the US since we use a coin-based system, but just bear with me here. If you live in a country that uses paper money and they switch over to a new currency that is entirely digital, well then this would be considered a CBDC. It's simply a different form of their existing fiat currency. And apparently these new digital currencies are supposed to be faster, safer, and more innovative than traditional cash or even bank deposits. And if you're curious why countries are doing this, well, there's actually two main reasons. The first reason is because they want to compete with cryptocurrencies. You see, when Bitcoin was created in 2009, it showed the world that you don't need a bank or a government to oversee your money. And over the past decade, other cryptos have done things that people didn't even think were possible. Like imagine being able to move money around the world in mere seconds without needing a bank. Or imagine being able to program your money so that it pays you back interest every week without needing a savings account. Well, all of these things have become a reality with things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, DeFi, and many other projects. And to be honest, it has kind of scared governments around the world because they've always held a monopoly on money, and now that monopoly is starting to slip away. In fact, just listen to this quote from Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve. He said this, "Money is moving faster than ever and innovations are occurring at an astounding pace. We need to be prepared to move quickly should we conclude that a digital dollar is in the best interest of the American people." It seems like he is hinting that the US dollar might soon change, and that the Fed wants to be ready to keep up with all these changes. And the second reason why governments are pushing for CBDCs is because they want to have more control over their citizens. For example, right now, banks are very much controlled by the government. In fact, if your bank does something bad, the government will step in and bail them out. That's exactly what happened with the 2008 housing market crash. The government bailed out banks because they didn't want everyday people to lose their shirts. But if we had CBDCs, then the government could have direct access to your money, allowing them to control how and when you spend it. For example, they could put expiration dates on your money, meaning that you have to spend it or use it by a certain date or else it becomes worthless. They could also set spending limits. So if they decided that you shouldn't buy a luxury car, they could stop you from using your money to purchase one. And worse yet, they could take away your money. All it would take is for you to cross the wrong person or to say the wrong thing. And if the government didn't like you, they could freeze your assets and take everything you have. Now, I know this sounds scary, and honestly, it is. But hopefully you can see why countries are trying to implement these CBDCs. It gives them a way to compete with crypto and it allows them to have more control over their population. But this brings up the biggest question of the video. Why should you care? Why should you care about CBDCs? Well, in short, it's because they could take away your freedom. You see, one of the best parts about Bitcoin and other cryptos is that they allow us to have freedom. Freedom to move our money around the world, freedom to trade without middlemen, and freedom to spend our money however we want to. However, CBDCs would take away that freedom and give it back to the government. For example, a few months ago, the Canadian government froze the bank accounts of people that donated to a freedom convoy. In fact, they took away a total of $10 million because they didn't agree with what the protesters were doing. Now imagine if you lived in a country with CBDCs. Then the government could do the same thing to anyone that they didn't like. They could literally take away everything you have. CBDCs would be centralized, and that means they can be frozen, they can be tracked, and they can be denied. Think about it. Right now, if you send someone Bitcoin, no one can stop you unless that person reports you to the authorities, and even then, you can still move your Bitcoin around and it's pretty much untraceable. However, if you sent someone money using a CBDC, well then the government could track the whole transaction. They could see who you sent it to, how much you sent, and they could even freeze your account. At the end of the day, CBDCs would mean that your money is no longer yours. It would belong to the government. And I know this sounds like a crazy idea, but it's becoming a reality. And this leads us to the final question of the video. How can you fight back? How can you protect yourself against CBDCs? Well, there's some good news. There are plenty of projects fighting back, things like Bitcoin, Monero, Ethereum, and countless DeFi platforms. These projects offer things like privacy, decentralization, and borderless freedom. With Bitcoin and other cryptos, you can send money anywhere in the world without telling anybody. With Monero, you can send money anonymously without anyone knowing who you are. And with DeFi, you can earn an insane amount of money without needing a bank account. However, that doesn't mean that they'll be able to stay that way forever. Regulators are actively working on ways to rein in cryptocurrencies, and there are bills being passed that make it easier for the government to track and freeze crypto wallets. And the more they push, the more the crypto community innovates. Just like when governments create new laws, entrepreneurs find loopholes or new workarounds. This is a war that won't be ending anytime soon. And it's a war that will determine who has power over our money. The centralized entities like banks and governments, or the decentralized people like you and me. Now, to be totally transparent with you, I don't think CBDCs will take away all of our freedom. I think we'll still be able to use cryptos like Bitcoin and Ethereum. But I do think CBDCs will make it harder for us to transact, and they give governments more power. And whether or not that's a good thing is really up to you. As always, I hope this video helped you. You made it to the end. So here's your whiteboard crypto. Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much. Also, make sure to leave any questions or comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. We really hope that you've learned something, and most of all, we hope to see you in our next video. The old banking system is collapsing. One by one, banks are falling and trust is dying. But from the ashes, a new system is rising. DeFi, no banks, no middlemen, just code, contracts, and freedom. You can lend, borrow, earn interest, and trade without anyone's permission. Today, we go deep. Hi, welcome to our channel, The Know. One place for crypto education. And here we explain topics of the cryptocurrency world using analogies, stories, and examples so that you can easily understand them. In this video, we're going to explain what DeFi is, how it works, why the traditional finance system is crumbling, and why millions of people are moving into DeFi. So let's dig in. To start, let's begin with a cinematic hook to really set the stage. Have you ever heard of Terra Luna? Probably. Maybe you lost money there. Well, Terra Luna was a stable coin. It was supposed to stay pegged to the US dollar at 1-to-1 ratio. But then bam, the peg dropped and the price of the token went to zero. Investors lost billions of dollars. Banks and investors all over the world were shocked. How could this happen? But as you know, this isn't an isolated incident. There have been many other instances where banks and financial institutions have made mistakes or collapsed. For example, Silicon Valley Bank, First Republic Bank, Signature Bank, Silvergate, Credit Suisse, Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers. We've seen this before. Trust in the system seems to be dropping, and now people are starting to look for alternatives. Meanwhile, as these traditional financial institutions fall, a new system has risen from the ashes, one that some believe will replace the entire traditional finance system. A system built on code, mathematics, and most importantly, trustless technology. Enter decentralized finance, also known as DeFi. So first off, what is DeFi? DeFi stands for decentralized finance. Simply put, it's an umbrella term for all of the financial applications that are being built using the blockchain. So instead of having your money stored in a bank account or a brokerage account, DeFi allows you to interact with different protocols and earn high yield on your crypto, or even lend out your crypto to others. In addition, DeFi also offers many ways to leverage your crypto. You can use your crypto to borrow more crypto, or you can even use your crypto to buy crypto insurance policies in case the price goes down. Now, there's a lot more to it than that, but that's the gist of it. Now, I know that this may sound confusing or complicated, but we'll break down exactly how it works in just a second. First, let's show you some real numbers so that you can see how big this industry really is. As of today, there are around $98 billion worth of value locked in all of these different DeFi protocols. And if you don't know what value locked means, basically it just means that $98 billion worth of crypto has been deposited into these applications. Now, you might think that that number is huge, but you have to remember that the entire crypto market cap is around $1 trillion. So that means that only around 10% of the entire crypto market is being used within these DeFi protocols. Meaning there's a lot of room for growth. Next, let's answer the question, how does it work? To understand how it works, we'll need to first learn about smart contracts. Smart contracts are pieces of code that allow the people to enter into an agreement. Imagine you're buying a house. Normally, you'd have to sign a bunch of papers, hire a lawyer, make sure everything is in order, etc. But with a smart contract, you'd simply click a few buttons and then boom, you own the house. That's basically how it works. Smart contracts are also transparent, meaning anyone can look at the code and make sure it's safe. They're also global, meaning anyone in the world can use them. And they're also unstoppable, meaning once the agreement is made, it will be carried out. Now that we understand smart contracts, let's see how they're being used in DeFi. Let's say you wanted to lend out your Ethereum to someone else. With traditional finance, you would have to find someone you trust, agree on a loan amount and a loan term, and then hope that person pays you back. But with DeFi, you can deposit your Ethereum into a smart contract. The smart contract will then lend out your Ethereum to someone else and pay you a percentage of the interest. And this is just one example of how smart contracts are being used in DeFi. In fact, there are thousands of DeFi protocols that allow you to do all sorts of things with your crypto. You can deposit it, borrow against it, trade it, and much, much more. Now you might be wondering how big this industry is. Well, the total value locked in DeFi is currently around $98 billion and it's growing fast. In fact, DeFi is one of the fastest growing industries in the entire world. This is because DeFi is a completely open and permissionless industry, meaning anyone in the world can participate regardless of race, religion, or location. So why is DeFi growing so fast? Well, because it offers a lot of benefits over traditional finance. First off, it's much cheaper. With traditional finance, you have to pay fees to banks and other financial institutions. But with DeFi, there are no middlemen, so all of the fees go directly to the developers and the users. In addition, DeFi is much faster. With traditional finance, it can take days to transfer money. But with DeFi, transactions are carried out in seconds. Next, it's much more secure. With DeFi, your funds are secured by smart contracts and cryptography. And finally, it's much more transparent. With traditional finance, you have to trust that the banks are keeping your money safe. But with DeFi, all of the transactions are public, so anyone can see that your money is safe. It's no wonder why people are leaving traditional finance for DeFi. Next, let's discuss why TradFi is crumbling. Traditional finance, or TradFi, is the way that we've always done things when it comes to money. We have banks, brokers, and other financial institutions that help us manage our finances. But this system is starting to crumble for a few reasons. First off, there's a lack of trust. With traditional finance, you have to trust that the banks are keeping your money safe. But with the rise of DeFi, people are starting to realize that they don't have to trust anyone. They can simply trust the code. Another reason is inflation. Currencies all over the world are losing value due to inflation. But with cryptocurrencies, you can earn high yields on your money so that it actually grows. Next, there's hidden fees. With traditional finance, you have to pay fees to banks and other financial institutions. But with DeFi, there are no middlemen, so there are no fees. People want control. With traditional finance, you have to follow the rules of the banks. But with DeFi, you have complete control over your money. And finally, people want access. With traditional finance, you have to be in certain countries or meet certain requirements to access certain financial services. But with DeFi, anyone in the world can participate regardless of race, religion, or location. These are the reasons why traditional finance is crumbling and why people are moving towards DeFi. Finally, let's talk about the risks of DeFi. DeFi is still a relatively new industry, and there are risks involved. First off, smart contracts can be hacked. In fact, there have already been several high-profile hacks in the DeFi space. Next, protocols can fail. Just like any business, a DeFi protocol can run into trouble and fail. And finally, it's a new frontier. DeFi is a completely new industry, and we don't know what the future holds. These are the risks that come with DeFi. But it's important to note that the traditional finance industry also comes with risks. In fact, there have been many high-profile bank failures in the past. The point is, every industry comes with risk, and DeFi is no exception. If you're interested in DeFi, it's important to do your research and only invest what you're willing to lose. So on that note, let's end with our outro. The old world is breaking. Trust in the system seems to be dropping, and people are looking for alternatives. DeFi is here. It's raw, it's risky, it's revolutionary. Will you wait for the collapse or join the revolution now? That's all I got. Be blessed. Good boy out. In the beginning, crypto was about rebellion, freedom from governments, from banks, from control. But now the tables have turned. The system we once sought to escape is now coming for us. Governments around the world are drafting new laws. Watchdog agencies are suing crypto companies. Exchanges are being shut down. People are being arrested. The feds are at the door of one of the largest exchanges in the world. The Kraken has been ordered to shut down. Paxos is being sued by the SEC. Coinbase is under criminal investigation. Binance is under investigation from the Treasury Department and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Crypto lending platforms are collapsing. Crypto companies are being forced to go public. Bitcoin ATMs are disappearing. Crypto is not going away, but it's becoming clear that something is dying. It's time to ask why. Why do they want this so badly? And more importantly, how can we stop them? This is an emergency alert. Put your hands together for episode number 46 of Crypto Whiteboard. Here we explain the complicated stuff, so you can understand the bigger picture. Today we'll try to answer the question, why do they want to ban crypto? And I think the answer will surprise you. Let's dig in. Welcome to our channel, home of the largest and greatest crypto community in all the interwebs. Every day on this channel, we take a deep dive into the world of crypto and blockchain. And if you're interested in making money, this is the place to be, because every day on this channel, we help you avoid the scams and find the hidden gems before they get all puffy like Kim Kardashian's butt. So do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and make sure you never miss an episode. On today's episode, we're gonna look at why the powers that be want to ban crypto and what we can do about it. If you follow crypto news, then you probably already have a pretty good idea of what we're talking about here. Regulators are getting aggressive. They're throwing everything against the wall to see what sticks. And we're gonna take a look at some of their tactics to figure out what it is that they really want. The first thing to realize is that crypto threatens the establishment in a number of ways. It's borderless, which means it can't be controlled by any one government. It's permissionless, meaning you don't need to ask permission from anyone to use it. And it's transparent, which means no one person or entity can ever control it. These three properties scare the pants off anybody who wants to control people. In other words, everybody who's in charge. Because when you can't control something, you lose power. And those who have power are terrified of losing it. So let's take a look at what they're doing and what they want. First and foremost, they want control. And there are basically 4 ways to achieve that. KYC, taxes, surveillance, and censorship. Let's start with KYC. KYC stands for Know Your Customer. It's a process where you have to prove your identity in order to use a financial product. This is the exact opposite of the way crypto was intended to work. But you've probably noticed by now that most centralized exchanges require KYC. In order to protect themselves from regulators, exchanges like Coinbase and Gemini won't allow you to buy crypto without first proving your identity. Second, they want taxes. Whenever you buy or sell crypto, you have to pay capital gains tax. These taxes can reach up to 20% depending on your income bracket. And just like KYC, these taxes were never part of the original vision for crypto. In fact, Satoshi Nakamoto, the mysterious founder of Bitcoin, said that crypto shouldn't be subject to taxation. He said, quote, "Taxes are the one thing that I do not believe in. I think we should be allowed to trade freely." Third, they want surveillance. All crypto transactions are public and traceable. Even though the technology is decentralized, the networks are public. So somebody somewhere is always keeping track of your activity. And finally, fourth, they want censorship. They want to be able to block certain transactions. When you send Bitcoin, you don't need to ask permission from anyone. You just do it. But the powers that be would like to change that. They would like to control the network by controlling the nodes. Nodes are basically computers that keep the network running. If they can control enough nodes, they could theoretically censor transactions. They could decide which transactions get blocked and which ones go through. Okay, so we know what they want, but why do they want it so badly? Why are they so scared? Well, there are two reasons. One, they want to capture value, and two, they want to maintain control. Let's start with capturing value. When crypto was in its infancy, it didn't really pose any threat to the status quo. The total value was only a few $1,000,000. No big deal. But crypto has grown exponentially since then. Today, the total value locked in crypto is roughly $1.2 trillion. And that number is growing fast. To put that in perspective, when Bitcoin first came out, you could have bought 10,000 Bitcoin for less than $40. Today, 10,000 Bitcoin is worth $500 million. Needless to say, things have changed. Now the powers that be are starting to take notice. This represents a huge opportunity to capture trillions of dollars in value. And by the way, we're not saying that this value should or shouldn't be captured. We're just saying that this is what's at stake. Now, if they can get control of crypto, they can tax transactions, they can seize illicit funds, they can even issue CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. In other words, they can turn crypto into a new tool for extracting wealth. And we know this because they've already tried. When crypto first came out, the IRS ruled that crypto should be treated as property for tax purposes. If you bought Bitcoin early on, you probably owe a ton of capital gains tax. Now, the second reason they want control is to maintain control. As we mentioned earlier, crypto is a threat to the establishment because it's borderless, permissionless, and uncontrollable. In other words, it's anti-establishment. This makes it an existential threat to anyone who benefits from the current system. And we're not talking about just politicians and bankers. We're talking about everyone who benefits from the current system, everyone who's in charge. By taking control of crypto, they can stop this existential threat. They can neutralize the technology that's threatening their power. And we know this because they've already tried. Take a look at the recent crackdown on privacy coins like Monero and Zcash. Privacy coins are a direct challenge to KYC and surveillance. If you want to maintain control, you have to crack down on privacy coins. Or take a look at the recent attacks on decentralized exchanges like Mango and Beanstalk. These attacks represent a direct assault on permissionless technology. If you want to maintain control, you have to crack down on permissionless tech. The goal is to make crypto into a controlled opposition, to neutralize the technology without destroying it. But does this mean that crypto is going away? Absolutely not. In fact, we'd argue that crypto is stronger than ever. Crypto has survived a lot of turbulence in the past, from China banning mining to the collapse of multiple exchanges. Crypto has been through it all and it's still standing. And we're not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. Things are getting difficult. We're losing ground. But crypto isn't going away. It's just evolving. Remember, decentralized exchanges are still operating, privacy coins are still being used, and anonymous developers are still working on new protocols. As long as this continues, crypto will live on. So what can we do to help? Well, the first thing you can do is learn as much as possible. Knowledge is power. The more you understand, the better you'll be able to navigate the murky waters ahead. Second, get involved. Join a crypto advocacy group. Vote with your feet. Move to a crypto-friendly jurisdiction like Wyoming or Malta. Third, educate others. Most people simply don't understand crypto. Help them understand, and they'll be more likely to support you. Fourth, stay safe. Don't fall victim to scams and don't share your private keys. And finally, stay positive. Things are tough right now, but the war isn't over. It's just entering the final stage. Can freedom survive regulation? Will crypto bend or will it break? Only time will tell. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, hit that like button and let us know in the comments section below what you thought of this video. And if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. Until next time. See ya.